And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Mike Martin, who has explored and studied alternate realities and different dimensions utilizing portals for more than 35 years. He believes that we live on a prison planet, and he is here to give us his plan to escape. Mike, welcome back. It's great to have you again.
Well, thank you very much, and it's good to be here.
Well, you were on about 6 months ago, and many people may have not seen this video. So can we start with you giving us a little bit about your background first?
Okay. Well, first I'll start off with I'm just a normal person, just like the rest of everybody listening. I started getting interested in astral projection when I read about it. And then once I had my first experience, after trying for almost a year, I realized that that's what I was having as a child. And so once I was able to control the experience, then I started really working harder towards it. And then that's when the portals came along. I became lucid within that dream state. And then from there, I was whisked into a portal state, which means I'm seeing these portals just all of a sudden happening. I'm awake in bed. I could see it with my eyes closed. Once I open my eyes, it's disconnected. Generally, they last anywhere from about 15 to 30 seconds. They disappear, and I'd see all different places and locales, whether it's here on Earth or somewhere else. And I was having these for decades. And then I discovered something that was very similar to that state, which is I call the glimpse state, which is based upon the daydream state. And then from that point, I started really studying it. It's a different state of consciousness, which is very similar to the same state that I utilize in the dream state, which I basically utilize the hypnagogic state. And the daydream state is very similar to the hypnagogic state. So I'm able to control this daydream state because when you're watching a daydream, your consciousness is watching this movie screen. And then your subconsciousness goes behind the veil, and then it explores different dimensions and alternate realities. Well, I was able to connect with that, follow the subconsciousness behind that veil and bring that information back. Over time, at first I didn't understand it because every time my consciousness would come back from the veil, I would lose all that information. So over time, I finally got good at getting myself over there and retaining that information. So I was able to see these experiences, other dimensions, other alternate realities, and begin to put all this together. So the whole time I'm exploring and studying what I'm experiencing and writing everything down. I'm documenting everything.
So you're having lucid dreams and you're basically outside of your body astral traveling, right?
Well, first of all, when I first started the whole process, when I started the astral traveling, I was using my dream state, my lucid dream, as a gateway into the astral. The first time I told myself, when I realized I was dreaming, I thought to myself, I want to have an astral projection. I was whisked out of my body, and then I was in the astral, and I was having that experience. Okay. After that, every time I became lucid within a dream, before I even had the chance to tell myself I wanted to have an out-of-body experience, I'm whisked back into bed, completely awake with my eyes closed, and that's when the portals started. I'm just seeing them, and they're not under my control. I'm just seeing them, and that would happen every time. So it kind of blocked me from the access to the portal. The only time that I had any experiences related to the astral was through the dream state. Now then at time I became lucid within a dream without going into the portal so that I can control myself within that dream state and work within that realm. That state of mind or state of that realm is what I call it. It's part of the astral, which is the dream state. So I've got the portals working through the astral in the dream state, and then also the glimpses, which works through the daydream state. So I've explored and documented experiences within all of these states.
What does a portal look like?
At first, what happened was when I started seeing the portals, it looks like an oval shape. within the blackness. So when you close your eyes and you're laying in bed, it's like seeing a portal image. I mean, a oval image, like a live viewing of like a CCTV or a television screen. But at first it was in the oval. And around it was a description, or a border around it with a description, but it was in a language I didn't understand. I didn't understand any of the lettering, none of that. I just was seeing it and trying to figure it out. But I was watching the picture, and it was a live viewing. It was buildings by a water. So I would see things happening within it, so I knew it was live. The first couple times it was an oval image. After that, it became my whole peripheral vision. So what I'm seeing this with my third eye, and is if you're on the astral or you're utilizing your third eye, your peripheral vision is almost 360 degrees. So it's not like just seeing when you're awake, because your peripheral vision isn't that large. So I'm seeing a screen that would be like standing right in front of maybe a movie screen, because you can't even see all the way around it. So I'm in these situations and I'm seeing these images. Now I'm not participating in them, I'm watching them. And so there was one time that I was able to enter one and be able to travel through it and see some things. But after maybe 30 to 45 seconds, I would assume, because time doesn't exist on the other side, I think I began to run out of energy. Things started flashing, everything would pixelate, and then I opened my eyes in bed. So what's happening is a connection with the portal absorbs some type of energy from me to keep the connection going. But the first ones, probably the first 10 years, I didn't have any control over them. They would show up and I wasn't powering them. I wasn't causing that connection, because when you begin to do it on your own, it takes more energy as well as consuming energy to keep the portal open. And what the portal is it's an opening between, say, and if you had one on Earth, if I opened a portal here on Earth and it was to your location, it would be like me and you standing on the opposite sides of a window or a glass. It was like we're in the same room, it would seem like, but we're really not. It just opens the door between two locations. It could be the astral, it could be another dimension, it could be anywhere on Earth, it could be any place, but it's just an opening in space-time. Some are just for viewing, some are through travel, and there's other uses for them as well. But a portal, usually, the reason I think I saw it in the oval shape for the first couple times is for me to understand what it was, because I had no concept of what it was. And then after that, it just opened up to my full peripheral vision.
Now, when you say that the portal had writing around it, that means to me that the portal was created by some type of tech.
Some type of tech, or it's weird to explain, because when we're in the physical, we think, okay, well, anything that would look like it was presented to us in a digital format, then it must be the same thing. But what's happening on the other side, when there's no physical devices, you're dealing in more of the spiritual. And this is, with your imagination, you can create things that we would need technology to create here on Earth. So this could have easily, it could have been technology created, or it could have been created by any of the inhabitants, because they're non-physical. But what happens is when I'm in these different places, whether they're alternate realities or whether they're different dimensions, they can create their own image or their own background based upon their thought process. They imagine it, it happens. It's their form of being able to do things. We see things as, okay, well, if I want to build that house, then I have to do all these, I have to do this construction, the planning, and have all these materials. They do things with their knowledge or with their abilities that don't require any type of physical anything to do. So it's hard for us to understand that until we really get into it.
Give me your reasons why you think we live on a prison planet.
I base it not only on my physical experiences, but I base it on my non-physical experiences and my studies and documentation through decades, over 35 years now I've been going through this process. And I had to come to a decision on what does this mean for others? I mean, there has to be some value within what's going on. And I had to go through everything and question everything. I tell everybody, question everything. You don't have to believe me. You don't have to believe anybody else. But try and do question for yourselves. But also remember, if you have a few experiences, whether it's in the dream state or whether it's in the astral or whether it's in different dimensions or whatever, and you take it for granted, it's almost like going to a different city and trusting a stranger and believing everything they say because they're from a different place and you think they know better. That's not right. What I had to do is go there over and over, hundreds of times, over decades, to dig deeper to find out what was going on. And people will say, well, you know, we have these spirit guides that are helping us and this and that, the angels and all this kind of stuff. It's a grand scheme. It's a grand illusion. It's very intricately planned, and it's a very good game. We all deal with our daily lives on a regular basis. We see suffering, we see all this, and the answers we get are, oh, we're here to learn, we're here to do this, and this is just a learning process, and we're going to be, you know, born over and over. Okay, let's look at it in reality. Let's question this, just the basics of it. Okay, so how many times do you need to see somebody die of cancer or an animal that you have? Or how many times you need to die from a disease? How many times do you need to see somebody born? How many times you need to be in a car accident? How many times you need to do this? And then the other people say, well, we're here to do good when we come back. Okay, name one spirit guide who made any great contribution to mankind. You won't find one because it doesn't exist. What you're doing is there's a thing called the game of life. That's what I call it. It's a game. And you're involved in the game. You're going to buy into everything that keeps you contributing to the game. Once you step outside of that bubble or your comfort zone, which you live within your limitations. And your limitations are based upon laws and rules and all the other things you're supposed to do in life. When you go and look outside and you really go into it, you really get into it, then you begin to see there's more than just the shiny surface or what you're told. The beings will convince you to rely on them. That's the first thing. If you become dependent, then you're no longer independent. Independent people question everything. Independent people have to prove things in order for them to understand it. And that's where we're at. We would rather have somebody to rely on to do these things rather than do the hard work ourselves. And that's how we've gotten into this predicament. So when I go and I see these other beings, these other entities, and they tell me things and they try to convince me to keep portals open, which is a giant red flag, but they've never, ever once in all these decades offered me one iota of anything that would make our world better, anything that would help us as humans get away from war, drug addiction, all these things. And the reason being is we're overseen. We're overseen by what I call a darkness. We are beings of light. We are beings of energy. We are the darkness. I mean, they are the darkness that surrounds us. We are the bright stars, and we're surrounded by a darkness that absorbs our energy, our light. We're here to react. We're here to feel, think, and emotionally be affected by drama and all this bad news and all these things going on, even the good news. When we feel and think, we emit energy. That darkness absorbs this energy, and it also manipulates us so that we're constantly in the push and pull, push and pull, push and pull world that causes us to always focus on the physical, because the non-physical has the answers, but you have to get past the gatekeepers, and that's the hard part. So what's happening is This darkness is absorbing our light, which is our energy, and we create that energy for them. So what I am saying is, you're living a physical life, then you go on the astral and you think, hey, I found the escape. No, the earth is a prison. The astral is nothing but the prison yard. So you still have other beings on there keeping you within that limitation bubble. So when people think they're getting this spirit guide that's helping them, no, they're just to keep you in line. They're going to give you another level of the agenda.
Have you ever encountered any of these dark beings out there?
Yes, I call them the dark ones. So when I was a child, I had a lot of really bad nightmares and dreams. A lot of them were, I would say, the dark ones. I would never see faces or images. It was usually me being abducted at night and almost in a lucid state. These were dreams that were so real that it was like they actually happened. It's not just a bad dream. You don't remember a bad dream generally, 40 years ago. These are lucid, can't get away dreams, and they were all happening over and over and over again. So when I got older, I got out of that. And then maybe about 10 years ago, they started all over again. Once I became lucid within these states, I said, okay, now it's time for me to deal directly with the source, figure out what's going on. So what was happening is I get into a situation in one of my dreams, it would be normal, and then all of a sudden the darkness would come in and it would engulf the whole dream. And I'd feel the hair on the back of my neck stand up, and then I would go into it almost with but I was just going into it too emotionally charged, and I had to stop that. So I would go into a portal, and then it was happening over and over. Eventually, I got desensitized so that it wasn't happening. I wasn't becoming charged. I had the ability to not be affected by it. Emotionally, boom, no feelings. I went into it. Eventually, I got to the point where I went face to face with this dark image. And I knew the dark image was like these other spiritual beings on these other dimensions, because they could portray themselves as anything they wanted to, whether they want to portray themselves as dark or a devil or an angel, whatever. They chose the darkness because that gives me that basically puts me in a situation where I don't know what it is, so I have to leave it up to my imagination. But at this point, I didn't care. I didn't care about this darkness. I said, I'm going to overcome this dream. I faced it. I looked straight at it. I turned my back on it, and I walked away. I showed no emotion, because what happens is when you are in these situations where you're getting frightened in dreams, you're releasing energy. This is their way of manipulating you to get what they want. Whether you're super happy or super frightened or depressed or whatever, you're releasing that energy. Like I said, it's called the game. We have to be in control of our thoughts, our emotions, and our feelings. And if we don't, we're constantly releasing that. So I got to the point where I was able to stop that and deal with it head to head. I'm not going to give them what they want out of the situation. And then it stopped. So I came to the conclusion after many years of dealing with that we're in a situation, it's like predator and prey. They look at us as we would look at, if we only had one food source and it was cattle, then that's how we would look at it. So we would manipulate cattle by feeding them more or a certain type of food that's going to get them to produce more and keep them in a situation to where they're producing how we want and that sort of thing. And that's the situation that we are in. And by giving us all this misinformation and deception in order to keep us in line, that's why when you get any real truth, it's really hard to get to, because there's so much disinformation out there to keep you away from the truth. So it's hard to get to the truth because there is so much out there that's going to sell you on baloney. And that's what it's made for. It's made to misguide you from everything. And that's where we're at. And that's why it's so easy to just like, okay, well, the majority of people believe in this. This is all baloney because nobody believes in it. Well, yeah, it's because if you were the ultimate manipulator, that's what you do. You'd focus people in a different direction. You don't want them to know the truth. You want to keep them going this way. You want to keep them occupied in their lives. Don't let them get in this other place.
Are we all galactic criminals that have been sentenced to planet Earth? Or did we come here choosing to play a really cool game and got stuck here?
I think it's more of a lure and a trap situation. I don't have an exact history behind that, but I do know we're in this situation. And I don't know how, like I said, I don't know how we got here, but the fact is that we're in this situation. So my plan was, okay, all right, now, like every other problem in the world, we know we have it. Everybody is aware of it. There's no reason to tune in and listen to all our problems because it's repeated over and over and over again. It's time for a solution, because without a solution, complaining about it is meaningless. So that's why I worked hard and I finally got an answer to my question. And then at that point, I had to put forth a plan so that we have a solution to this problem. And that's what I've been working on for ever since I released it back in December of last year. So that's where I'm at right now, because this is my main goal now, to pinpoint and focus on that.
So what is your plan to get out of here?
I proposed a question a long time ago when I was seeking the answer to this question. And it came to me like, I work in the technical field and I've had problems in life where you just like get to a point where you're like, okay, I don't have the answer. The answer is not available. So what I will do is I will put myself in a position to where I have all the information that surrounds my problem. So if I get an answer, I'll be able to understand it. Because if I don't have a good understanding of the problem, then if I get an answer, it might not make sense. So this is back in December. I received an answer. I'm doing something completely off the subject, and it comes to me. So I write it down. The answer for me was, instead of generating power, giving them our power is to take the power back. That's a very simple answer. It's a very simple answer, but that's not the plan. How is that a solution? It just seems like a real simple, whatever. It just seems too simple. So what I said was, okay, let me put this into perspective before I do anything. So what I did is like, okay, how's this going to work? How would this work? And I do, as a technical person, I knew a motor can consume power and a motor can also generate power. Now, we are conscious beings, conscious energy. We don't have a body. We're not the physical body. We're not the spirit body. We're not the soul. And we are not the subconsciousness. We are conscious energy. And we're trapped within this three-body system overseen by the subconsciousness, which is part of an oversight system. So I said, okay, so what are we going to do? How are we going to do this? Okay, so I said, well, we have to take back our energy. I have to figure a way how we're going to do that. And how would that work? And over the years, I've dealt with a lot of situations where I had to learn to control my energy. For instance, when I met the dark ones, how do I stop myself from reacting? How do I stop myself from expending that energy when I'm in the situation with those dark ones? I had to get my feelings, my emotions, my thoughts under control. When you realize you have control of everything in your life, then you begin to understand. And the more you control it, the more you say, wow, okay, it's not only about taking back the energy, it's about not releasing it in the first place. So that's step one. Don't fall into the game. Don't always focus on the game.
Before you go forward, if you're saying don't give energy or don't create energy, are you suggesting that perhaps we become emotionless?
No, it's not about being emotionless. So for instance, okay, you're with friends or with somebody, and somebody walks up to you and they said something that triggers you, and immediately get upset and you blurt something out. Okay. First thing, if you think about it, is you just allowed that other person to control you, because that in reality is what happened. That other person said something that they knew would get a rise out of you, and therefore you reacted to that rise. Now, if that person said something and you didn't react and you were like, okay, well, cool, whatever, and you move on, that's the end of the situation. But as you know, people in general, they like drama. You watch it on TV, it's on social media, it sells. Drama sells. So what are people going to do? They're going to overreact. They want to get a video of it. They want to do this. They think it's funny or blah, blah, blah. It's because we've been trained. We've been programmed to do these things. And it seems like, well, it's a stupid little thing. It doesn't really matter. Yeah, because you are beating the machine. We wouldn't be in this situation if we weren't contributing to our own demise. That's the whole reason. It's like we are the energy cells that is powering our own prison. If for some reason we all stop doing that, the prison, there would be no more force field holding us in or whatever's holding us in. We are powering our own prison. We are keeping ourselves in this position by doing it for ourselves because we don't know that. We don't understand that we're non-physical beings. We think all we are is these physical beings, and we go through this real life, and we're supposed to go to work, we're supposed to have a family, and we, do this, we do that. We're supposed to follow through with all the physical things. And that's what we're convinced. And that's the reason behind it. Keep us in that box. And that's the whole purpose behind what we're doing. Don't step out of the box.
All right. So step one is not expending your energy, right?
Well, being in control of yourself. I mean, yeah, if you're gonna be happy, you be happy, but there's life within reason. You don't, if you get mad at something, you don't need to throw a wrench or take a hammer and, break something or whatever. You just deal with it. As an adult, we just deal with things, I mean, it's been overblown the way things happen in life just so that we do what is requested. I mean, get control of your thoughts. Most people just allow all these thoughts just to haphazardly happen all the time. You're not in control of anything. And I'll give you an example too. Say, for instance, you're on a long drive and you're driving. Next thing you know, you daze off and you don't remember the last 30 miles. It's just been a straight road. You don't remember it. It's because your subconscious was in control. So it's the same thing when you're sleeping. When you're sleeping, are you aware? Most people aren't even aware of what they dreamed at night. You don't know what's going on. In reality, your dreams are nothing more than filtered garbage, because just like in the daydream state, your consciousness is sitting here watching that TV screen, and your subconscious goes back in the astral and it's doing all these things, but you're not receiving any experience. It's doing it all, but you're not getting anything. Like the daydream state, it's misinformation. It's filtered garbage. So for 8 hours a night or 10 hours a night, you're giving up control of yourself to the subconscious. Whenever you're driving or whenever you just lose yourself in thought, because you just kind of robotically going along. So we're giving away a lot of what we're doing here. If you're in control and you're in control of your thoughts and you're lucid, what we need to be is lucid within our life. Always aware of the present. Know where you're at. Know what you're thinking. Know what you're doing. You're responsible for that. Because when we think, and our thoughts are also energy. So if you're secretly upset with somebody and you keep thinking about it over and over all day, it's just feeding the system. And so if people get in control of their thoughts, their feelings, and their emotions, it contributes to our well-being, and it gets you in line with what's going on because you're becoming lucid. You're aware of what's going on. Life is in some way short. And if you're not in control of your situation, then who is? You have to ask that, and if you're not focusing in of what's into beyond what you see, because we live a life of what we see, what we can touch, what we can feel, what people tell us, what society says, or what the news says, or what social media says. That's what we live by. And that's not a life. That's not a life of individual. When you're an individual, you're free to some degree.
What's step two?
Step two, once you've got in control, you're getting in control of yourself. The other thing is, okay, I devised a plan. And before I did that, I had to test it. So I said, all right, taking back energy. Now I know that I'm doing it in the plan, in the first step. So what I'm trying to do is, how am I going to physically go in there and take it? Okay. So first of all, this is a non-physical entity that we're dealing with. We're dealing with something on the non-physical. So it's not like you can just go take an instrument or a computer and hack into the system and stop it. So you have to, if you deal with the non-physical, you have to do it on a non-physical level. So I said, okay, well, not everybody has the ability to astral project or do a really good meditation or the glimpse state. There has to be other ways for people, just regular people, to be able to contribute to it if they're serious. So I laid out a plan. I have a video called The Solution and a video called The Plan on my channel, and I put a lot of stuff on there, my dark explorations. And so what I explain is, okay, if you choose to, on the basic level, contribute to taking your energy back, this is how I propose. So you get in a non-physical state, whether it's meditation or through visualization. Some people are really good at visualizing. And even if you're not, that's no excuse. You can get good at visualizing just by certain practice. And if you're not willing to put in the effort, then you're not going to benefit, or nobody's going to benefit from this process. So what I say is, get in somewhere quiet where you feel comfortable, not somewhere so you're so comfortable you're going to fall asleep. Get in that quiet thing and visualize. Visualize yourself being in a non-physical space. Just start with a dark room. You're there. And imagine for yourself what you have seen within your dream state or whatever as something threatening to you, whether it's a dark one or a scary monster, whatever you've seen, whatever you can portray as that other being, those other beings, you portray that. And at that point, you're creating production, a three-dimensional non-physical production within your mind. What you're doing is you're working on a normal level that the consciousness works on. Your consciousness doesn't work generally in the physical. That's why you have physical body. Your consciousness works in the non-physical. And the only way that you can create is through thought and and visualization. So what you're doing is you're setting up a predicament, just like a dream, where you're meeting these creatures or whatever you determine in that non-physical space. Then you connect with them in whatever way you decide. I try not to lay it out too intricately because people have their own idea of what things should look like. And I leave it up to the individual because I don't want you using anybody else's ideas if it doesn't ring true for you. So you somehow connect with them and pull that power back. Now, whether it's using tentacles like on an octopus and bringing the power back through the tentacles, or using wires or hoses, whatever. What I did was I put myself in the position in many different states. I used the glimpse state. I use a meditative state. And I also use another state, the dream state. And what I did was I put myself in this non-physical state and met other beings. And then what I did was I connected with them and then pulled power back. I had to put this to the test to see if it was even going to work. Well, I was successful in every one of these situations because I went through and did it over and over and over to make sure that I was going to get the desired outcome from the situation. And what I found is eventually those beings were leaving. They were not coming around me because they knew what was going on. They knew that I was aware of what the situation was, and I was here to take back energy. Now, taking back energy just from beings or doesn't have to be beings. It could be anything physical, because our whole system is made of etheric energy, and we can connect with anything that we can imagine and pull the energy from it. And what this does is, at first you might not be successful in the situation or what you're trying, but as you go along, it begins to set in. It's like the first couple times you play guitar, you might not be very good at it, but eventually you start to catch it and you start to get the rhythm. You start to get the groove. And what I compare it to is, if you're a writer or an artist, when you start to get in that zone where you're in like a tunnel and it's just you and that other thing that you're working on, that's when you're so focused, then it opens up different connections and allows you to begin your creation process. And I know some people, it's working on automotive parts or whatever you take an interest in, that's what I compare it to. And when you make a connection, there's absolutely there's no question of whether you're becoming successful or not.
Once we die, what should we do?
Let me start with this first. My solution, my plan is for us to take down the system that's enslaving us, rather than, because what happens is, what that does is it switches our role from being prey to being predator. Because what we're doing is we're going back to them and taking back from them. Now, if you plan on dying and then dealing with it, then you're not going to beat them at their own game. I figured that out a long time ago, because I spend a lot of time lucid dreaming and dealing within those realms. And what happens is, when you get in those other states, the illusional control on your life has many different levels. And no matter how good I got, man, I get to a next level. I'm like, okay, now I'm not going to be overwhelmed. Nope. Because you're not going to beat them at their own game. It's like, okay, they're 10,000 miles ahead of you and you went 50 feet. So how long do you think it's, and then their ability moves along with you. So if you increase your knowledge base, they move right along with you. You're never going to beat them at their illusional game. So when you die, what most likely will happen, and I've seen it happen even to me in those situations, is your subconscious is there. And what it will do is it'll put you in like a drug-like state to where you're aware of what's going on. Your consciousness is aware of what's happening, but you're in that state to where you will agree to anything. So even if there is a system or a process where it says, hey, we really need you to come back, and oh yeah, I'll go. Because no matter how much you know or how well you've trained yourself, unless you're like at this level beyond what we could conceive, you're not going to get out. You can't, those choices are, the game is too rigged for that. So the only way we're going to get out of the system is by taking it down. And if you're in a computer system, okay, the hacker can control the system if he's within the system. So first he has to get past the firewall. And once he's within, he can do pretty much everything. That's the only way we're going to affect the system, is from within. So once we're inside, this is how we take down the system. We take the energy back. And I'm not talking about just taking some, I'm talking about taking it all. Because the system that controls us is the same system that they live off of. And if we take that system down, then there's nothing left to keep us in this prison.
What would our lives be like if we took the system down?
So we're in that system and this is all happening. And when I go there, and this is what's hard to explain, and I'll do my best to try to put it into words so people understand. Okay, when I go there to the glimpse state, to other dimensions, other realities, it's me. It's not my body. It's not my spirit. It's not my soul. And it's not the subconscious. It's me, my consciousness. When I go there, there are no thoughts, no stray thoughts, no feelings, no emotions, no time. There's none of the physical attributes we deal with on a regular day. There's no worries. There's no anything. What it is I'm there. I'm there in that situation. And I feel like, as in the astral, you feel like you have total freedom. You're there, your focus is there, and that's what happens. So it's a complete, it's so completely different. So what I do is, now that I'm in that situation, I come back and I'm trying to explain it. And that's the closest that I've ever been to having an answer to what it would be like if I was not here, if the matrix went down. And also, I have free creative ability. And this is the weird part, too. When we're born, we have to learn how to walk and talk and all these things we have to learn. Boy, the first time that I ever had astral projection and stuff, I knew how to use telepathy. And it was all in a language that I understood. I could move, I could think, I could do all these things. And I've never been trained to do it. So right there, it shows me that's my natural state. It's not that we don't have a body, but we are creative beings. We're creative energy. So there's no limit. You don't have to eat. You don't have to drink. You don't have to have a house. You don't have all these things that were created in this physical life are things that keep you entrapped within the system. You're focused on them because you're dependent on everything. There, you're not dependent on anything. That's true freedom.
How confident are you that your plan is effective?
I've been doing it for, I don't know, it's middle of May right now, and I proposed it in December, and I've been working on it since then. There are other people that are working on it. And my answer to that is I've been very successful in it. I don't know to what degree we need to keep doing it, or how many people we need, or whatever. I can't answer any of that. All I say is this is the answer that I have. I have no other answers, and I haven't heard anything that would even hold a candle. I know a lot of people go through the process. They say, well, if you follow all these ancient texts and there's different ways to do this and stuff. I haven't heard anything that I could try that would work other than this. So I put my focus on this because at this point, this is the only way that I know how to get out. And I've utilized it so I know it works. To what degree we have to continue with it, I can't answer that.
Do we need to free enough people in order to take down the whole system? And if so, how many do you think it is?
Well, one thing I have to say is, and it's not just freeing the people for this. What I tell people is, the worst thing is if you have all these people, say the majority, say 90% of the population is sold and just living within their comfort zone and won't accept anything out of there, then if you did free them, what would happen? Because those people are just either going to fall back into that same system or not want to leave because they don't understand anything with outside of it. You know, I mean, I've experienced outside of here, away from here, and it's still hard to, at times it's still difficult to accept the concept because I've been so intricately programmed to accept what's here. Because, you know, obviously you can feel this, you know, you can feel things, you know, things you can touch. But when you get into that other situation, even though I've had all these experiences all these times, it's still hard to put into words, and it's still difficult to manage at times because we're so well manipulated in this thought process, and in this, we've been so well sold on this snake oil.
Earlier, you mentioned that while your consciousness is focused or distracted on something, your subconscious is doing other things without you realizing that.
Right. Your
How is that?
consciousness,
How is that possible?
yeah, your conscious energy, which is us, we're the consciousness. The subconsciousness, we're told that it does this other function, but the subconsciousness is part of the system that surrounds us. Okay, it's like, I guess you could call it. We would understand it as a AI system, a network system, and everybody is overseen by a subconsciousness, and then it oversees the whole system. I call the subconsciousness the warden in the prison, because it oversees everything. It knows everything. It lives within you and all does it. So what's happening is when your consciousness is here, I'll just use the daydream state for an example. So your consciousness is here and your daydream is like a movie screen right here. So it's sitting there watching the movie screen, which is, you riding your bike on the mountain or you driving a car, whatever's happening in your daydream. And then as that's happening, as that's being watching that screen, your subconsciousness goes behind the screen and connects with different dimensions and alternate realities. So it's doing that. Now, when people say, well, that's not very long. Okay, so what you got to understand is we deal with things in seconds and minutes and hours, whatever. Now, being on the other side, because there is really no time. But when you're over there, a second could be, I don't know, a year here. So there's a lot of things that can be done when it's away. So, and your consciousness is busy doing that. So your subconscious can do several things at one time. It can help you drive your car. You're not paying attention. It can do that. It does multiple things at one time. So what we're doing is the subconsciousness does all these things going on. And I happen to catch it. And I have actually watched it. I can't say that it looks like something, but I've seen how it works. I've followed it. And it's like an autonomous, I would say it's an autonomous, I can't even say being. It's an autonomous energy that does these things. And what it does is it pulls the wool out of your eye. There's a thing called the veil. And it separates us from the non-physical. And every time I used to go through the veil and come back, all my memories were wiped. So after doing it back and forth many, 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 many times, eventually I got to the point where I don't know how I did it, but I got myself to where I was resistant enough that I could bring back information and my experiences so that I knew what was happening on the other side. So it's a multi-level illusional system of control. And they use us to their advantage because we buy into things so easily. We've been programmed to believe things. And we are, like I said, we are powering our own prison. And we contribute constantly as we keep buying into all the things that happen, all the politics, all the events. All we're doing is we're just solidifying our own capture. We're keeping ourselves in here by contributing to our own demise is what we're doing.
Can you give us your definition of what the veil is? Because sometimes you're talking about how you're crossing the veil.
Right. I would say it's an energy field. It's some type of an energy field with a lot of resistance in it. And what it does is it's almost like a force field that surrounds us. And it keeps the non-physical part of us from crossing over. Like, just if you're in a daydream state, you've got the activity going on. And when I'm in these states that I call the glimpse state, the illusional field that surrounds me, which is probably part of the veil, it's so strong that if my attention strays for a moment, I'm sucked into it and I'm into the daydream and I don't remember anything that happened. So it's an illusional type of a force field that has the ability to block your understandings or block your clear your memories. It's really hard to put into words, but I do my best to try to understand exactly how it works. But I try not to get stuck too much within the inner workings of the system, because if I understand enough in order to get myself through this process and understand what's going on, I wanted to spend more time on solutions and the plan. And that's why I went through my explanation of using the glimpse mode and using meditation and using visualization for this plan and for the solution on my YouTube page in videos. And I always follow up with comments and answers so that people can build their own idea of how it's going to work for them. And people who are really very, very strong-willed and are willing to put forth the effort are working on this as well with me. There's not a lot because, I mean, you know, you figure a lot of people are still living within the bubble of limitations. They accept it and they don't feel comfortable leaving their comfort zone.
Are there any dangers to your plan?
I'll tell you where the danger's at. It's every day. I mean, if you've got somebody who's manipulating you, deceiving you on a daily basis that's been doing it your whole life, and also when you're dreaming, don't you think that's enough? Don't you think that's enough of a threat? When you come to understand what your real situation is and understand the enemy, then you realize there's nothing to fear. There's nothing to fear. But what's happening is, as we reverse our role from prey to predator, they have now something to fear. So we come from, instead of you fearing, they should be fearing. And the only way you're going to realize that, and the only way you're going to understand that, is to go through the process of understanding and getting control of yourself. And doesn't happen overnight. And if you're not willing to put forth the effort, it's not going to happen. This is something, it's almost like, okay, let me use this for example. If you're addicted to a drug or alcohol or something like that, the only person that can get you out of that situation is yourself. Nobody, you can go to a million different, meetings or whatever, but that's not going to stop you until you decide for yourself to put an end to your addiction. Then it's not going to happen. And this is the same thing. Until you put forth that effort and have the drive, you're not going to know or understand at any level of what's going on here. So when people hear it, they're like, well, I don't believe it because the majority of people don't believe it. And it doesn't go along with what I've been taught. Well, the thing is, if you've got a really good system of deception, don't you think you're going to buy into it real easy? And then you're going to fight wanting to believe anything outside of that because you've been so well programmed. Guess what? That's how you are. I mean, and looking to politicians and world leaders and everything, telling you, oh, well, if you just did this, or everything's going to be better. Don't believe in anybody, because if you're relying on somebody else, then you're making a mistake. You have to rely on yourself. You're the only one that can do anything about anything. And by putting your trust in somebody else, that's your biggest mistake. I don't care who it is. You know, I don't have any political affiliation or anything, because I know that if I want something done, I have to do it myself.
Now, there may be some people out there that would say that you're just dreaming, not lucid dreaming. What would your response be to them?
You know what? There's always going to be people that aren't going to agree with me, and that's fine. That's your choice. But there's also going to be people that aren't going to agree with me because it's against their agenda. Now, I said there's a non-physical force that's in charge of us. Well, don't you think there are people that are actually working with that force? Because obviously we see in the world where things happen and we're like, wow, that shouldn't be happening. And we know why, because they're working with them. There's a lot of things that happen we see on a daily basis that we don't want to swallow, that we don't want to accept. But instead of blaming people, take charge and start changing the system. Because if we change it from say there's 8 billion people on the planet and 1 million of them are 100,000 or 10,000 are working against us. Well, the best way to do it is you're not going to beat them at their own game. You're not going to change the politics. You're not going to change the money system. You're not going to change any of that. But what we can change is this. Because if we go directly to the top of what's causing the problem, the non-physical, and we work within that realm, then we are dealing with something that is on a whole nother level. Don't fight people. Don't fight enemies at their own game. Go to the next level and beat them so that they can't, get them at the top. And that's what my solution does. That's what my plan does. It takes away their power, because you're not going to beat them with money. You're not going to beat them with politics. Like I said, none of that's going to work. If you're trying to do it on the physical level, you'll never do anything. That just never works.
What about the people that are out there that are overwhelmed and are just feeling stuck in life? What should they do?
Like in addictions and like in everything else, you have to get in control of yourself. Now, it may seem to be, well, that doesn't help me financially. It doesn't help. Okay, there's a lot of things in life, but you could have all the money in the world. You can have all the cool stuff, boats and houses and everything else. You can have all that cool stuff and still not be happy. Now, I'm not saying happiness is our complete goal here. It's being content and believing in yourself. So if you've got these problems, you look at the source. And a lot of times when people aren't happy is when the times they'll begin to question things. That puts you in the perfect predicament to begin to look at things in reality. Because if you're fat, dumb, and happy, there's no reason we're not gonna rock the boat. We want to, everything's going good for me. I'm not going to do anything. I don't want anybody to mess it up. I want to stay happy. But when you're not happy is the time where people start to look and they start to delve into it. And depending on how much energy and time you put into it, whether you're going to find anything or not. But if you don't help yourself realize what's going on around you and get your life in order and look within, it doesn't matter how much money you have or whatever you have. None of that matters because you're not physical. Okay, so we're the driver and our body is the car. That's all it is. It's just a car. So don't always see yourself as this. Don't see yourself as this. You're within. And that's the level that you need to deal with. So get within yourself and get things straightened out there, because maybe you're at this point because it's time to look inward, and we all go through it and realize how many times you want to have to keep going through this type of a situation. Haven't you had enough by now? I know I have.
Once we get out of the prison, where will we be?
I've thought about that a lot. And in my estimation, I can't tell you for sure. When I know something, I believe I know something, I'll tell you. When I don't, I'll make an assumption or guess. My thought is, based upon my experiences, I would say you will then create your existence. Now, when people say, oh, now that we're creating our existence right now, no, we're not. This is a situation where they want you to believe you're creating it. They want you to keep returning to it because you're in a recycle process. You will know the difference between when you're in control and when someone else is in control. And you have to go through the process to understand it. A lot of people already know. They know that this is not where they belong. They understand they're done with the suffering. They're done with all of the negative aspects and all the responsibilities that are cast upon them. So I've seen it. I've experienced it. And from my experience, it's beyond words. It's beyond anything that I could really say to you that would give you that insight. And I'm not talking about, balls of light and angels and devils and all that kind of stuff. No, it's not. It's not. It's you in existence. You're your own creator. You're your own everything.
After watching this podcast, people may want to ask you questions. Should they go to your YouTube channel and leave comments, or do you have a website?
I've got the YouTube channel, My Dark Explorations. You can leave comments on there. I also have a link to my email on that channel, so they can also email me with, private messages. Some people don't like to talk about their experiences or ask questions in public. That's fine. They can contact me in different ways, and I always stay in touch, and I always answer questions because I understand that how frustrating it is. You get to a certain point and you don't have any answers and there's nobody to turn to. I understand that completely. I've been in that situation many times and I had to find out all this about myself. So yeah, frustration, I understand it. I know it. And I do my best. It's not that I'm out here thinking that I'm going to help everybody. That's not the whole process. I just want to come up with tools that allow people to help themselves, because I don't want anybody to depend on me. I want everybody to become independent. That's the whole purpose behind it. If we were independent, free thinking people that understood our situation, then we wouldn't be in this mess in the first place. So once you begin to understand, and then you can maybe hopefully get some answers that will help you. Even if I say one word that triggers the fire in your being to get you moving, that's all I can hope for. I'm not doing this for my health. I mean, this is not my favorite thing to do. I'm doing this to help others, because if I don't do it, who in the hell is going to do it? And and you have to look at it this way. If I help you, then you're also helping me. So the harder I work, the more it helps me and you. And the harder you work, the more it helps everybody else. So the more people we get on board helping ourselves, we're also helping everybody else as well, because we're working towards our freedom, not just our personal freedom.
Do you feel like you figured it all out, or are you still working on this subject?
The more I know, the more I realize I don't know. It's never about knowing everything. I mean, I realized that a long time ago. The more that I learn, the more that kind of opens more of a door up to me. So I'm still learning the process, and I'm still learning about things, and I'm still refining my techniques. And I think about it all the time, and I work on things. I make videos and that sort of thing, because I want to get information out there. And then I also address, if I get comments that people are struggling with something or having problems, and it will help other people, then I will get to that on a video or something to help people that may be struggling with the same issue. But the whole thing is about getting the word out there, getting the information out so people can receive it and then do what they decide with it. I can only control what I do. So like I said, making it available is what my job is, and that's what I've been doing for the past couple of years now.
Before we finish up, can you leave us with a last positive message?
The positive message is, like I said before, is we put ourselves in the situation. Can we get out? Yeah, we can get out of the situation. But we all need to work together with it. It's not about, we don't have the power to do it. I don't talk about this a lot, but it is very important. We have the ability to do things that we have no concept of. We're probably using less than 1% of what we even have available to us on a regular basis. And as I delve into more and more things, I kind of maybe don't appreciate them as much as I used to, because it's not new and I've been working in it for a long time. But as one door opens, there's just so much more there. And I can't even explain kind of how things are or what we can do, but you won't know that until you begin to work on it, until you begin to apply yourself. We are creators in our own right. We can create anything that we desire on the non-physical level. This is what I'm speaking of, because when you're in the non-physical, you're more alive than what you are right now. You're more lucid than what you are right now. This is just for me, it's just kind of people say, oh, have you seen this? Have you seen this? There's no comparison between experiencing something on the non-physical and then coming here and seeing, something on Earth. It's just, there's absolutely no comparison. It's a completely foreign experience, but it feels natural. When you get there, you're like, okay, this is it. You don't have headaches. You don't have pains. You don't have anything because you don't have a body. You don't have any of the drawbacks. You don't have to depend on anything. You are there. You are there in the present, and the present is all that exists. The past is nothing but a memory, and the future is you're in hopes of something. But the present is all that exists there. So there's none of this. There's no worries. There's no problems. It's just you are there. And it's all about, basically at that point, it's you doing your thing.
Mike, thank you for your message, and thank you for being my guest.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me. It's a pleasure.
Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.